Hello guys, in one of my previous videos you knew that it's very important to write code that is readable and understandable for human with the three best coding practices, which are the first one is using good naming for identifiers. The second one is keeping lines of code as short as possible, and the last one is keeping methods and classes as small as possible. And in this video I'm going to show you how to refactor some Java code in action following those best coding practices. Ready, steady, go! This is my Java project in Spring 2 Sui IDE, as you can see. And I'm going to refactor the code of this business class PayPal REST API service. And let me explain this class to you. This class implements the method validate PayPal order here. This method is invoked by a client to validate an order with order ID and total amount here, and it will use Spring REST template to consumer RESTful web services from PayPal API here. This section loads the setting for the PayPal API URL, client ID, client secret, and make a request to PayPal API server and read the response into a PayPal order response here. This is the entity class that maps to the JSON response from PayPal API. It is quite simple. And in case the PayPal server returns HTTP status not okay, it will throw an error here, as you can see, based on the HTTP status code here, not found, bad request, internet server error, and it gets the PayPal order response here, and finally it will return the Boolean value. Here you can see the method returns a Boolean value. Here, by comparing the order ID from the method argument with the ID from the order response here, and comparing the total amount here. And this is the API document of PayPal API. Here you can see this is API URL which is used by this class, as you can see. Check out orders here. And in the next few minutes I will show you how to refactor this code of this class. And as you can see, this method validate PayPal order starting from the line 30 here and to the line 73 here. That means this method contains more than 40 lines of code. And this is a setting service that allows the settings for the PayPal API based URL, API client ID, and API client secret. And basically, when writing code, you should write the code that is visible in this rectangle window. Yeah, this is a code editor, and to the left is a project explorer. To the right is the outline view that allows you to see the methods, variables in the current class in the current code editor. So basically, you should make the code visible in this center rectangle on the screen. So I will refactor the code in this class step by step from top to bottom. First, I want to make the lines of code short, less than 80 characters. So all the code visible in the code editor. So we should continue the throw declaration in the next line here. And you can see for the use of enum constants here, we can use the static import. So you can change to use static import here. And then you can delete the enum class here. So you can see the code is shorter, right? Here, we can continue the code in the next line. So it is visible in the code editor like this. Also for this method, this statement is quite long, as you can see. So we should continue the code in the next line like this. If the second line is still long, you should break it into another line. So you can see we break a long line into three shorter lines here, and making it all visible in the code editor, so you can see it easily, right? Okay, and the last statement return here. Okay, so first thing is to make all the code visible in the editor here, less than 80 characters. And you can see the business logic in the method validate PayPal order here. Basically contains three parts. The first part that makes RESTful web service see request to the PayPal API server here. And the second part is for throwing the error in case the HTTP started code is not okay here. And the last part is to validate the order here, order ID and total amount here. So I can move this code into a new method here. The code that consumes the PayPal web service here. So in Eclipse, you can choose a code block and refactor extract method here. So I give the new method a name. For example, get all the details here with the parameter is order ID here. And by default, the modifier of the method is private here. Okay, you can see. You see the get order details method here. And then the section that generates the error message here based on HTTP status code here. So we can also move this code block into another method. Refactor check method. So the name is throw exception if response not okay. And you can see the second new method here, throw exception if response not okay. In case the HTTP started code is not okay here, we construct the error message based on a specific HTTP error code here. And the last part validate the order ID and total amount passed from the caller when invoking this method here, and the order response received from PayPal here. And you can see the logic comparison of order ID and total amount here can be moved into the PayPal order response class itself here. So I code a new method here. Public boolean validate this order response object against the order ID and total amount here, and it return this comparison here. This get ID, this get total, and here we return the order response validate against order ID and total amount. This ID and this get total, and can also make this method more readable, like this boolean. We need to compare the order. So the first boolean value is order ID match here equal this dot ID equal to the order ID passed from the method's argument here. And the second boolean value is total amounts match here equal this get total equals to the total amount here, and then return order ID match here and total amount matched here. So you can see this validate method is now more readable, extremely easier to read. You see, it returns the value of two boolean variables, order ID match here and total amount match here. And this get order details method should return PayPal order response object directory. So we need to modify that method a little bit here. It should return the body of the response entity here. Get body in a directory. So the variable name here should be response order or order response. Order response. So delete this statement, and the code that check the HTTP status here and throw the exception here should be also moved into the get order details method. Yeah. And it throws declaration for the method. Again, we should continue the throws declaration to the next line to make it more readable, as you can see. And the statements that print the order ID and order total from the paper order response object here can be encapsulated into the stitching method of this class itself. So here we can generate the stitching method refactor. Source generate stitching, and we want to print the values of the ID and total amount here. ID total amount. Total amount, and it should be total amount value. And here we just print the order response object. Order response here. So you can see the validate paper order methods now looks very simple. Just 3 statements: get order details, and then print the order response, and then validate the order response. And go into the get order details method, and you can see the first part here is to make the request to the PayPal REST API server. So we can also split the code here into another method. Here, refactor extract method, and give it a meaningful name is make request with the parameter is order ID here. And you can see the get order details method is now much more similar here. You can see with 3 lines, 4 lines of code here. Make request, get the status code, throw exception if response not okay, and then return the response entity body. Here, so you can see it looks more readable, right, from top to bottom here. And in the make request method here, you can also refactor more. As you can notice that it contains the code that loads the settings of PayPal API based URL, client ID, and client secret here, and set the HTTP headers here. And I think the variables based URL, client ID, and client secret should be declared as instant variables in this class. So I declare this instant variable here, based URL and client ID and client secret here. So I can refactor the code that loads the setting here for the base URL, client ID, client secret here. To a new method, extract. Eclipse cannot refactor, so we can cut the code and create a new method manually here. Load settings. Okay, you see, and we delete the declaration of local variables here. So it will assign values to the instant variables based URL, client and client secret here. And in the first line of this make request method will load the settings here. And then it constructs the order detail API URL from the base URL. And here this string can be declared as a constant here. Private static final string order underscore details API URL here. Okay, you see. Then we can here you can replace this with a constant here. So when you want to change the version of API, for example, we just change the value of this constant in the beginning of the class here, and every places that use this constant will be updated automatically. And then we can move this code snippet into a new method, refactor check method, and name it as get set http headers. Okay, so you see. And in this the statement here, we can return directly return mass template here. Okay, so now you can see the make request method is now looking more readable. As you can see, first it loads the settings, construct the order detail API URL, set the HTTP headers, and make the request here using a Spring REST template here. And we can make it more readable by moving this statement. So the set HTTP headers method should be renamed to create request, and it returns this HTTP entity object here. And here it returns a new HTTP entity object wrapping the headers here. You see. So we can delete this lab code, and then we update the exchange method here. If method contains several parameters, we can split each parameter in each line here, like this. So it is very readable, understandable, and we assign the return value of the create request method here. Create request here. You see. So finally, I have done refactoring the code of this class, and let me read it from top to bottom here. You see, validate payment order, get order details, here from what are the details here. We make request here, make request here, load settings, call the REST template exchange method, passing the URL, create request here, create request method here, load setting method here. You see. So each method contains a few lines of code. So they are very readable, understandable, as you can see here. So this is the final result of code refactor for this class, as you can see. You get all the details, make request, return a response entity, get started code, throw exception if response not okay. So we see. So far you have seen how I refactor some Java code to make it more readable, more understandable, and easier to maintain. I hope you will also follow this good habit in your daily programming. Before we go, please subscribe to my channel, like, comment, and share this video. Thanks for watching. Until next time.